So I am going to start. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. My name is Carrie Burgess. I know a lot of you. For those of you who I haven't met before, welcome. I'm with the Saskatchewan Tourism Education Council, Department of Tourism, Saskatchewan, and we are just thrilled to be able to partner with David Lund to offer this webinar series on financial literacy. Like I mentioned before, please mute your mic and your video. If you go into and hover over that bar in the middle of your screen, you will also see a little pop-up box that says Show Conversation. If you click on that, that is how we are going to communicate your questions and comments to David. So I'm going to post your question there. I hope everybody can see it. It's called Meeting Chat. And I know that David's going to be asking questions throughout, and this is a way that you can communicate with David and answer his questions. If for some reason the meeting chat does not work for you, please just turn on your video and then I'll see your face and I'll know that you have a question to ask. But if at all possible, please use the meeting chat. I am going to hand it over to David. So there you go.
Excellent. Thank you, Carrie. Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. I'm coming to you from the great state of Maine in the United States. But rest assured, I am a Canadian. I'm from New Brunswick, and I've lived all over Canada and also in the US for the last few years. So it's my pleasure to be here with you. I'm going to make a copy of this deck available to all of you afterwards. So really what I ask is that you engage with me this afternoon. And in order to do that, as Carrie mentioned, we're going to use the chat. I'm going to be asking 3 polling questions during the webinar. If you have a question, you can ask it through the chat. And Carrie will then relay it to me. And at the end, I'm going to ask for open-ended comments and questions. Please share your thoughts. So a little bit about me. I'm from New Brunswick originally, like I mentioned, and I worked in Canada for Fairmont Hotels for just over 30 years. And I did a lot of positions in rooms and food and beverage for the first part of my career. And then by a fluke, I actually ended up in accounting and spent much of the last part of my career as a controller, director of finance. Was also a hotel manager for a few years, and I also worked at our corporate office in Toronto, and then I finished my career in San Francisco. And that's kind of why I'm still in the States, but that's a little bit about me. I live here in Maine with my wife. We have 2 dogs, and I have 3 daughters. So I think the thing about me that's just like you is I'm a hotel person, and I went to hotel school out of high school, which was college basically, and I worked in just about every position in the hotel other than sales and maintenance. So I know my way around the hotel, and the financial piece is what I want to talk to you all about this afternoon. So the purpose of this webinar series, and I really want to thank our friends at Tourism Saskatchewan for sponsoring this, is to increase your financial leadership skills. You have a huge part to play in the success of your property. And I know right now we're all paused, but sooner or later we're going to get back at it. And I want you to come back with more impact, a bigger part to play. And the numbers are not scary. Numbers kind of get a bad rap, but I want to tell you that if I can figure them out and if I can master them, I know you can as well. Impact. I know that all of you have a lot of impact at work already. And by having financial leadership skills, you're going to be able to increase that. And I invite all of you to play full out and participate today. So what do I mean by playing full out? Well, this is what I believe in our business. Our business is not a science. There are no absolutes. And I know that if I asked every single one of you, what would you rather have, 2 points in occupancy or $10 in average rate in your hotel, and why, I would get a different answer from absolutely every one of you. And what that means is that everyone's opinion counts. And I want you to think about that and think about how you view the world inside of your hotel, and what your opinions are on things, because that's what's important, to be able to share those and to share those with this workshop series. So nobody gets to be right. Everyone is right. Nobody gets to be wrong, and everyone is wrong. That's our business. There are no absolutes. Okay, everything in business is teamwork. Great things in business are never done by one person. They are done by a team of people. And Steve Jobs was quoted on that. And that's our business. You cannot run a hotel by yourself. Even if you are doing it now, it's because of COVID and all the stuff that's going on with that. But in a normal operation, we need absolutely everybody to know what they're doing, especially as it comes to the numbers. We need people to be connected and to be able to communicate. So how do you create a financially engaged leadership team? Well, you do it the same way you create service culture and colleague engagement inside of your hotels. You plant a seed and you nurture it. And that's kind of what we're doing today, is helping you plant your seed. So I invite all of you to shift your thinking. And I do this at the beginning of every workshop that I do. I invite people to shift their thinking, because I know that all of you, before you came to this workshop today, were probably thinking, oh, he's going to talk about accounting, and that's like going to the dentist. But I want you to shift your thinking. Shift that thinking to learning and being curious and realizing you have the ability to grow your abilities. Look at it not as accounting, but business thinking. That's what I'm going to teach you. And if you can look at it that way, you're cool, and you're going to have greater career success. And what that really boils down to is you're going to have greater personal prosperity. With these skills, you're going to make more money. You're going to have a better career, and I invite you to play full out today. So our business is still the kind of business where you can start out as the dishwasher, which I did. My very first job in a small inn was washing the dishes. And you can go all the way to be the president of the company, just like this gentleman did. But in order to do that, you need to have one thing more than anything else. You need to be able to understand your numbers. You need to be able to talk about the language of our business. What's the strategy? How are we going to position our hotel? All of that relates to understanding the numbers and how they come together. And it's really not that difficult. But that's what's possible in our industry, is to go from the very level entry position all the way to the top. And that's what I believe is possible for all of you. Okay, so this is the kind of discussion we have inside of a lot of our businesses and hotels. It kind of goes like this. One person says to another, you know, what happens if we invest in our people and they leave? Well, the really smart response to that is, what happens if we don't invest them and they stay? And in our business, people want to work for companies and leaders that are going to invest in them. And that's what all of you need to be thinking about as your career progresses, is how can you create the kind of team around you that's really going to help you manage and drive the greatest amount of success for your business and your property. The way you do that is by investing in the people that work for you. And that's a key thing to understand. Investing in people with training, it's not an expense, it's an investment. An investment is something that pays off over time, gives you a return on that investment. That's what this kind of training will do. So most hotels fly by the seat of their pants when it comes to proactively managing their numbers. The two key words here are proactively managing. Most hotels fly by the seat of their pants. So what do I mean by that? Well, there are four traits that most hotels portray. Number one is we love to underpromise and overdeliver. So in other words, when someone like the owner or the brand asks us how much revenue and profit we're going to generate next month or next year, we love to underpromise and overdeliver. It's just what we do. The second thing is that there is a forecast disconnect when it comes to the numbers. And what I mean by that is that most hotels will produce a monthly forecast, give it to their owners, give it to the brand, And that's usually prepared by the senior leadership team, the GM, the director of finance, the director of sales, perhaps, maybe the revenue manager. But the rest of the operation are disconnected from that. They do not understand what the other hand is doing. And what we need to be able to do is to actually get rid of that disconnection so that the numbers that are forecasted and used for the owner are actually the same numbers that the front office manager and the housekeeper and the director of maintenance and the restaurant manager all have those numbers and are working from the same set of numbers. Number 3, we all know that volume hides a multitude of sins. So we all know that if we can make our top line, most of the time we'll make the bottom line forecast. That's kind of the way we run things. But we also know what happens when we don't have the volume. All of those ugly things come to the surface. Number 4, many people think it's just accounting when it comes to the numbers, and there's no real connection to them or their department, or most importantly, how they do things. And nothing could be further from the truth, because the accounting is actually there to serve 2 purposes. One is to tell us what the score is. Are we winning or losing relative to budget and last year? And the second thing it tells us is if we read our financial statements properly, it tells us exactly where the problem is. So we can diagnose what the problem is with our business and take the appropriate action. So I have a few questions for all of you. And I don't want you to answer them in the sense of typing in the chat right now, but what I want you to do is be thinking about what your answer would be as I go through these next few slides. So what would it be worth to your bottom line if your managers in your hotel willingly and enthusiastically prepared their forecast for their expenses and their payroll in all areas? What would that be worth? What would it be worth if the same managers actually prepared those forecasts using a zero base in detail for their expenses, and they used payroll and staffing guides and productivity measures for all areas? What would that be worth to your bottom line? And then what would it be worth if your same group of managers actually were on top of and tracked the daily and month-to-date sales and the rooms on the books and the pickup report, so that they actually knew where we were relative to what we said we were going to generate as far as revenues throughout the entire month? What would that be worth? And then what would it be worth if those same managers were able to adjust their schedules and adjust their purchase orders according to the change in the volume of business? What if they were able to pivot when the occupancy is going to be down 10%, that they could actually reduce their spending by 10%? What would that be worth to the bottom line? And then what would it be worth if those same managers actually reviewed their month-end financial statements and their GL details and actually were able to make sure that their department's numbers were exactly what they forecasted, what they actually purchased, and that we closed the books and the books were clean? What would that be worth to your bottom line? And then finally, what would it be worth if those same group of managers actually were able to write a compelling and informative monthly commentary focused on constant improvement? What worked this month? What didn't work? What are we going to do next month? What if that was how we ran our hotel? What would that be worth? The answer is, it would be worth lots and lots of money. That's what we're all talking about when it comes to financial leadership, when it comes to how we manage our business. That's what we want to strive for. Okay, I want to tell you a little story. And I ask this question, I get asked this question a lot because I kind of came up with these 3 words: hospitality, financial leadership. But I get the question a lot from people, David, what exactly is financial leadership? And it's not what you think. So my story is about an old GM of mine when I worked in Victoria. And this is quite a few years ago. And I had just got the position as the assistant controller. And I've been at it a few months. And my boss, Michael, came into my office and he said, David, I've got good news and bad news. What do you want to hear first? I thought, oh no, here we go. And I said, okay, Michael, tell me the good news. He says, the good news is I just got my vacation request approved and I'm going away for 6 weeks this summer. I said, oh, great. Where are you going? He says, I'm going back east. I said, okay, what's the bad news? He says, you get to do the budget. And I went, oh no. Because this GM, who had not been with us very long either, he had the reputation of being very difficult to deal with, very demanding. And I didn't want to have to work with him to prepare my first budget. So I was pretty sure that this was going to be a bit of a train wreck. Well, the following week, Michael left on his holiday and the general manager phoned me and said, come to my office. I want to discuss the budget with you. So I went over and he explained to me that he wasn't very happy with the way the managers in the hotel looked after their payroll and their expenses. He said people don't know what's in their departments. They don't know what's in the middle of their statements. And I want to use the budget process to change all of that. So this is what I want you to do. I want each and every one of the managers to present their budgets to us. And I want them to use zero-based expenses, where they actually come in and tell us what's in every account. So if we're looking at guest supplies, they actually tell me what items are in that account, how much, what the dollar value is. And everybody needs to know those for all of their accounts. And for payroll, I want everybody to have a staffing guide and a staffing formula. And what that amounts to is I want to have a list of approved fixed positions. And then for everybody else, I want a formula that drives the amount of payroll. So if you're working on the front desk or housekeeping, it's arrivals, it's departures, it's stayovers, it's different types of business by segmentation. They all have different peculiarities and require different things to be done. In food and beverage, it's all going to be about covers, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and how we drive our business and how we schedule people needs to be a formula. Well, I can tell you for the next few weeks, I've never seen so many managers in accounts payable, in payroll, in human resources, trying to figure out what was to be in their budget. And one by one, those managers presented their budgets to the general manager and myself, and many of them were shown the door to go back and get more information or more details. And I want to tell you, when Michael came back 6 weeks later, we had an amazing budget, and we had a group of department managers that knew exactly what was in the middle of their statement. And the great thing about this GM was, and it still is, he doesn't know the first thing about accounting. He didn't know the difference between a debit and a credit. But what he was concerned with and what he was very passionate about was that all of the managers that worked for him knew what was in the middle of their statement. And that's how he ran the hotel. In the following year, once we started actualizing those results, he would hold people accountable for what was in their budget relative to their revenues. That's how you run a great hotel. So that's my story about that. So I want to tell you, I have a dream. And if any of you have been following me at all on social media or my blog, my dream is to make the numbers as important as the guests and colleagues. And what I mean by that is I want all of you to be just as comfortable dealing with the numbers as you are dealing with the guests and colleagues. And I know that's completely possible. I know some of you are out there thinking, well, I'm not a numbers person and I'm a people person. That's just an excuse. It's just a myth. You can master your numbers. So I want to tell you another story. This one involves how I kind of started out on this path of financial leadership. And I was the director of finance about 12 years ago at a hotel in Toronto. And I'd only been there a few months and things weren't going well. And the reason why things weren't going well is I couldn't put together an accurate forecast. The owners required one every month. Corporate office required one every month. This was a big, busy hotel. And I remember one month I missed it by several hundred thousands of dollars. And the asset manager, the owner, basically said to me, David, do you know what's going on? Do you know what is in, he said, do you know what in HE double hockey sticks is going on in my hotel? And I said, yeah, I do. We just had a couple of surprises and this didn't happen the way it was supposed to, and the weather and, you know, the things we always say when we don't make our numbers. But I knew in the back of my mind, in the front of my mind, I knew in my whole body what was wrong. The problem was I couldn't get the other managers in that hotel to do their forecast, to hand in their accruals, to hand in their invoices on time, to write their commentary, to give me their expense reports. I couldn't get them to do anything on time or accurate. And I was pretty sure one of three things were going to happen. One, I was going to quit. Two, I was going to have a nervous breakdown. Or three, I was pretty sure I was going to get fired. Along about the same time, a new general manager joined us. And she sat down with me and said, David, give me an update. What's going on in your department? And I explained to her what my big challenge was. And she said, I have an idea. Why don't you create a workshop? We can call it Hotel Finances for Dummies. And I just looked at her and I said, I don't have time to do that. And I'm not a teacher. And really, I was serious. I wasn't going to go teach a class for people who you would never turn in their stuff for me on time. I was always chasing them. Why would they want to come and spend any time with me? That was my thought. She goes, David, this is the right thing to do. And to make it really easy for you, I'm going to make it part of your bonus criteria this year. No workshop for David, no bonus for David. So the game was afoot. So in the few weeks after that, before the workshop date, HR actually handpicked 30 of the worst offenders to come and spend an entire day with me on a workshop. So I put together the workshop based on kind of what my thoughts were on what they needed to know. And leading up to the workshop, I was pretty sure that my workshop was going to suck, that I was going to suck. And actually, I was pretty sure that I was going to die delivering it. But you know something? I got through the day. It actually went fairly well. I thought I didn't blow it too badly. I thanked everyone, sent them home at the end of the day. And to my surprise, a couple of the leaders stayed behind to talk to me. And I heard things like, thank you, David. How come we don't get this training from day one? I've been here 5 years and nobody's ever explained the P&L to me before. And before I knew it that afternoon, I had a small lineup of leaders wanting to share their same thoughts with me. And I knew right away I was onto something. Because in our business, we don't train people on the finances. We let them fumble around in the dark and find their own way. Maybe they get lucky, maybe they find a friend, maybe they find a mentor, but for the most part, it's trial by fire. So a couple of months later, I did the workshop again. This time, HR didn't have to tell anybody to come. It filled up all by itself. And in a few short months, the financial culture in my hotel completely changed. Because now it was fun, now it was accessible. And people were coming to me with ideas on how to save payroll and expenses and how to generate more revenues. And we really had a great team when it came to the numbers. And it was all because of the workshop. So for the next 7 years inside of that company, I delivered and continued to deliver the workshop. And now I do it for my clients. And I have a whole inventory of different workshops that I do. And I've always, every time I deliver a workshop or a webinar, the same 4 things happen with the audience, with you. The first thing is leaders could see their impact. And when you tell someone that their numbers are going to be presented to the president of the company, they're going to be given to the owner, they're going to be given to the bank, they see that they have impact. And as human beings, one of the things we crave and need to have is the ability to make a difference in our world, to have impact. So if you can show someone that they have impact, if they work with you, that is powerful stuff. The workshop creates that. The second thing is that when you get a group of leaders together to do a workshop, and we talk about how things are working in the kitchen versus maintenance versus sales versus the front desk, they all see right away that this is really all the same stuff. We're all talking about payroll and expenses for the most part. And it's exactly the same in every department. It's not difficult, and a lot of the fear and confusion around it melts away during the workshop. The third thing is that there is a measurable ROI for this work. And ROI stands for return on investment. Remember at the beginning, I mentioned that this kind of work and this kind of training is not an expense, it's an investment, a return on investment, which means we can actually generate additional profits, better bottom line if we spend money and train people, and we can measure it. So as the director of finance, every time people from HR especially would come to see me with purchase orders, I would always somewhat teasingly say, well, when am I going to get my money back? When are you going to give me the money back for the cost of your training? And they would all look at me and say, David, you're so mean. You know, there's no return, measurable return for our training. We just have to do it. But with this training, you can measure it. And not today, but at some point, I will show all of you exactly how to do that. So the last thing that my workshop shows me, and showed me especially in those early days, showed me a different leadership style. And what I mean by that is that leading up to the workshop, every time I would ask and send out a reminder and a request to get people's forecasts and budgets and expense reports in on time on my schedule, it was to serve me. It wasn't to serve them. But what I realized by putting on the workshop was I was actually serving the people in my hotel. And as soon as I did that, I realized they were more than willing to actually serve me back. And that's how it works. So that's a really powerful message for all of you today. Your job, if you're running a department, if you're running a hotel, your job is to serve the people that work for you. It's not the other way around. They're not there to serve you. Your job is to serve them. And I want you to remember this saying, if serving is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. Okay, switching gears a little bit, everything in the hotel business is serving. Anyone who wants to know the hotel business thoroughly must start at the lower back door where the packages and the food come in and the trash and the garbage go out. He or she must work their way up carefully from that back door, through the kitchen, to the dining room, from the cheapest bedroom to the finest suites. Everyone you pass on your journey needs your service. You will need their service too if you are to prosper in this business we call hospitality. And that's from Oscar at the Waldorf Hotel. Excuse me. So I love that saying because it really encompasses what our business is and the element of service. We must service other people that we work with. And by training them and by investing in them, that is serving them. All right, so here's where we do our first polling question. And you got to use your chat box, and I simply want you to put in a yes or no as it relates to this question. And then Kara's going to actually collect those, and she can give us an update on those when we come back for our next question. So the question is, does your current role or your most recent one, did it involve some aspect of financial responsibility, such as budgets, forecasts, reports, and such? So please go ahead and put in a yes or no in the chat box right now. I'm just going to step aside for like 15 seconds and grab my glass of water. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and thank you all for responding to that poll. And I'll get up those updates from Kara in just a couple of minutes. I'll ask her for those. Okay, we're going to move on. Switching gears. Okay, I'll talk to you about a concept. as it relates to our hotels. When I talk about our hotels, I mean in a typical managed hotel idea, or even a franchise hotel. It works the same way. But we typically have 3 pillars in the hotel. And those pillars are guest service, colleague engagement, and the money, or the P&L, or the owner, whatever we want to call them. And my question is, do we treat them equally? So let's look at them. Let's examine them. The first one is guest service. And when we look at guest service in the hotel, it's a no-brainer that we invest in good guest service. But the thing about that is that the brand tells us what those service levels are. And when we get the annual budget package, we get communicated from the brand, they tell us how we need to be able to deliver service based on their standards. But when we look who pays for that, the owner pays 100% of that. The brand doesn't pay, the management company doesn't pay, so the owner pays to create the guest service or the service promise inside of your hotel. The second pillar is colleague engagement, and it's exactly the same thing. Everything we spend to train our colleagues, seasonal parties, sports teams, uniforms, the cafeteria, the employee newsletter, the employee opinion survey, the hotline, anything that we do inside of the 4 walls of our hotel to create colleague engagement, those standards are set by the brand, and the owner pays 100% of those. That's the way it works in our business. The management company doesn't pay anything, and the brand certainly doesn't pay anything. So how is it different with the third pillar, the money? Well, the third pillar is different. It's unevolved. Why is it unevolved? Well, I grew up in the business with this being pounded into my head, and it goes like this: look after the guests and the money will look after itself. Well, this is a myth. The money does not and never will look after itself. You have to look after it. So another reason why the money piece is so unevolved is it's taboo to talk about money. Talking about money is paramount to talking about that 3-letter word that starts with an S that I'm not going to mention. In our society, money has a lot of power. Power to shame people, power to embarrass people. But when it comes to money inside of our hotels, we need to be able to share this information, and we need to get over it. And I know for a lot of you, you don't get to see the financial statements in your hotel. But when you go back to work, I want you to find a way to get your owner and get your GM to share that information with you, because that is how we run the business. And you want to be part of that. You want to be in the boiler room, in the engine room, close to what's going on. The other reason why we're so unevolved is we all come from an owner-operator world. And what I mean by that is that the name on the door, not that many years ago, was the actual owner of the hotel. But we find ourselves today in a very different world. We work for owners. We work for management companies. Brands don't own hotels anymore. Brands are management companies. And owners expect to find a financially engaged leadership team inside of their hotel. In other words, they expect all of you to know what you're doing because you're spending their money. So back to the financial leadership and the idea of investing. I didn't say an expense. I said investing in financial leadership. Who would pay for it? Well, just like service and just like colleague engagement, the owner would pay. And my question would be, well, who would benefit from enhanced financial leadership abilities inside of your hotel? Who would benefit? Who would be better off because of that? Well, everyone would benefit. The owner would benefit because they're going to make more money. Leaders like you are going to benefit because you're going to have skills and abilities that make you and your career more prosperous. People move around in our business, and having those kind of skills makes you more valuable. Brands are going to benefit because the brand that's known for having the greatest financial leadership bench strength is going to be sought out by owners. Management companies are going to benefit in the same way. And you, if you're the GM of a hotel, the most powerful thing you can create is a financially engaged team around you, because that's how you achieve your numbers. That's how you make your profit. Without that, you're sunk. So everyone would benefit from increased financial leadership. Okay, let's switch gears again. I'm going to ask Carrie if she could just jump on and tell me what the overall results are from the last polling question.
Sure. Everybody said yes.
Everybody. I've never had 100% before. That's excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so what I want all of you to do now, and it's really important that it just be one word. I want you to write in the chat box one word that describes the financial leadership in your hotel today. Now, we can also use the word business acumen. I don't like those two words. I prefer financial leadership, but what's the culture like financially inside of your hotel? And if you want to add and get some bonus points, you could put a comment after your one word, not a phrase, just one word. What does that feel like inside of your hotel? What's the leadership like inside of your hotel? What's the financial leadership like? What's one word that describes that? And what does it feel like for bonus points? I'm going to give everybody just a minute to do that, and then we're going to move on, and I'll circle back with Carrie in a few minutes and get the responses. So I like to do this exercise with all of my workshops, sort of a way to break the ice and get people thinking about what they're dealing with. And here are some of the words that other hotels have come up with. And I'm not going to read them off to you, but consistently what I find is that the financial leadership inside of their hotel is a mystery to them. They don't know what's going on. And the reason why they don't know what's going on is they don't have a system inside of their hotel, a communication system. I'm not talking about a computer system, I'm talking about a communication system. They don't have a way of actually figuring out what's going on. So I'll be interested to hear some of your words in a couple of minutes, but with that, we're going to move on. And I have another polling question. So I know you've been really busy on the chat box, but the question is, and I simply want a yes or no answer. And again, I'm going to circle back in just a couple of minutes and get these responses as well as the responses on one word. But this one, the question is, do you think being more comfortable with the numbers in your career would equal greater opportunities for advancement? Do you see the connection? Just a yes or no. I'm going to let you answer that. It shouldn't take too long. And then we're going to switch gears yet again. And I want to talk about a really powerful distinction. And I call it the how-to versus the want-to when it comes to managing the numbers. And you can apply this how-to versus want-to to just about anything. Because there's a saying that goes like this: once you find the want-to, the how-to is everywhere. And to give you an example of this, I'm going to tell you a really short story from my home. So a few years ago, my wife and I, Joanne, were living in San Francisco. And my daughter, Allison, finished university in Canada, and she wanted to move to San Francisco to start her career. So she moved in with us. Well, my daughter, at that time anyways, was a bit of a slob, to say the least. And we couldn't get her to keep her room clean. And it would never occur to me to send her on a course or buy her a book on how to clean her room. She knows how to clean her room. So what's missing? What's missing, and if I'm going to have any success with Allison cleaning her room, it lies over there in the want to. Why would she want to clean her room? So think about that. When you're dealing with a problem, a challenge with another colleague or a situation, the answer always lies in creating want to. So when it comes to the business of managing the departmental expenses in the hotel, it's really not complicated, because all we're talking about are payroll and expenses. Pretty straightforward stuff. So when it comes to doing the job, though, it's a big, complicated job because it involves many people from many departments, and these people continually tell us they're already busy enough. That's what makes it difficult. But there are 4 reasons why people don't really want to take responsibility for their numbers. And these are things that you want to make sure you eliminate in your hotel. And if they're in front of you, you need to eliminate these things. So the first one is that someone else makes up the numbers for you. So in other words, department managers, we want them to come up with their own numbers. We don't want someone to give them their numbers. If we give people numbers and say, here's your numbers, it equals 0 buy-in from them. Don't do this. Number 2, you need to create a good financial communication system to follow in the hotel. And if you don't have one, you've got to create it. And I don't mean a computer system. I mean financial communication so that people know where we are at, what's going on, what they need to do. Number 3 is they don't take the amount of time they need to properly manage the numbers. In other words, someone doesn't actually make the amount of time for them. If you're going to do all of this Friday afternoon at 4:45, it's just not going to work. You need to take the appropriate amount of time, especially in the beginning. And then number 4, leaders don't yet see the positive impact that having proficiency with the numbers can have on their career. And what you need to do is to be able to portray that for them. So how can you create the want to when it comes to financial leadership? I just told you about the things you don't want to do, you want to eliminate, but here are the things you need to create in your hotel to help propel the want to when it comes to the numbers. Number 1 is you constantly need to be displaying that these are valuable skills that your managers are getting, and that they see that these skills are something that they want to have so they can generate more prosperity in their career and in their lives. Number 2, you want to show them that they make a difference and that they have impact by doing their numbers. And this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you've ever taken an HR course, you've seen this. But the need to make a difference lies right at the top between the green and blue parts of the pyramid. All of us have this innate desire to make a difference. So if you show someone that they're making a difference, bingo, that's what you want to do. Number 3, by showing the leaders that work for you that you're committed to them and to their future, it's priceless for you. Think about your own career. Think about the people that have helped you. What would you be willing to do for them? Answer, just about anything. So that's what you have the power to do when it comes to developing your people. If you invest in them, if you show them the way, they will be there for you. Number 4, what about you? Don't you want to have a financially engaged leadership team? Don't you want to be able to prove out exactly your strategy and execute it so that you can get excellent results? Having a financially engaged leadership team will allow you to do that. So, Carrie, before we ask the next polling question, I'm wondering if you could give us the answer to the last polling question, and then we'll get into the one word.
Sure, yeah. The answer to the last question was a lot of yeses. And single no.
One single no, okay.
No, not a single no, sorry.
Without a single no, okay.
Yeah.
Good,
yeah.
good. So everybody sees the direct link between having better financial abilities and creating greater prosperity. Okay, how about with one word? Give us a one or two of the words, and start with the ones where people actually wrote how it made them feel.
Sure, I have solid. And it makes me feel open. Accurate, which makes them feel like there's opportunity.
Okay.
Diligent, which makes me feel confident. Lacking,
excellent.
Which makes me feel pressure. Taking it day by day, which makes me feel hopeful.
Okay.
And then I have a bunch of one words, challenging, evolving, confident, involved. This one's possibly my favorite. It's complicated.
It's complicated.
Progressing, conservative, transparent, competent.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing those. There's a good mixture there. It really sounds like there are some people who are kind of on either side of the fence when it comes to how it works in their hotel. So no matter where you are, you're in great shape, because if you're wanting and if you're hopeful and if it's difficult, you have the ability to change that. And if you're already over on the side where it's organized and you're on top of it, good for you. And the great news is we can get even better. So last polling question, is this webinar relevant to your interests? And again, I'll circle back with Carrie in a couple of minutes and get the answer from her. Okay, here's what we need to understand when it comes to the numbers. And this is where a lot of people get hung up. So when it comes to service in our hotels, we know it's never going to be perfect. We know that executing 100% of the time is not likely. And people would want to lock you up if you came to work every day thinking that things were going to be perfect, because it just doesn't work that way. That's the reality when it comes to service. Yet we come to work every day and we strive to make it that way. Same with colleague engagement. If we thought that our employees are going to do everything 100% of the time exactly the way we've laid it out in the standards or whatever, we're crazy. It doesn't work that way. Yet we strive to keep engagement at a very high level. That's what we need to do. Well, guess what? When it comes to the numbers, it's exactly the same thing. The numbers are never going to be perfect. The job is never going to be completely done. You're always going to have to deal with the numbers. And for some reason, people think that the numbers at work, they're kind of like grade 10 math. And if I can pass it, I never have to take it again. But it doesn't work that way. The numbers are just another part of what you do. And if you want to rise to the top in hotel management, you just need to realize the job is never done. Okay. I love asking this question at my workshops, and I hold out and get all kinds of people to tell me what they think the answer is. But the question is, you know, what's the one thing we know for sure about the budget and forecast? And some people say it's hard. Some people say it takes forever to do it. Some people say, you know, they always want more. But I say, no, those are not the right answers. And I want you to take just a second right now and think about, you know, what do you think is the one thing that we know for sure about the budget and forecast? Just think about it for a sec. And then I'm going to tell you what the answer is. So the answer is, the one thing we know for sure about the budget and the forecast is, it's wrong. It's always wrong. It's never right. So the message here and the key is that what we need to do when it comes to the budget and the forecast is we need to take our shot. We need to get out there and do it and take away all of the anxiety that comes along with getting it right. It's never going to be right. Do a good job, absolutely. Be thorough, absolutely. But don't worry about perfection. Okay, your questions on today's webinar content. So at this point, I'm going to go back to Carrie and ask her for the results of the last polling question.
Everyone said yes.
Everyone said yes. Excellent. Well, good. We're on the right path then. So at this point, I'd like you to take a moment. If you have a question, write it in the chat box. And we're going to come back in like less than 2 minutes. And hopefully there'll be some questions there that Carrie can answer me. In the meantime, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to write your question. And don't be shy. If you're thinking of something, I bet someone else is thinking the same thing. And asking questions is the best way to learn. So ask those in the chat box now. I'm going to be giving you some homework. And part of your homework is going to be to watch this video. And I will send you the link to it. But it's a great video. It has over 4 million views. And the lady is talking about what's missing in your career. And she's really pointing towards women and what's missing in their career. But there's also a direct line to hospitality too, because that's what's missing in most people's career in the hotel business. And it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman, it's what's missing. So with that, I'm going to shut this down and get back to my desktop. All right. So we're not going to watch her right now, but this is going to be part of your homework. It's a TED Talk. It's about 18 minutes long. It's fascinating. I'm also going to be sending you links to 3 of the blogs that I've written that fit in well with what we talked about today in the introduction. And again, I want you to read these. I will send you the links. So this is your homework. Watch a video, read 3 blogs. And with that, I want to move to wrap things up, but I want to let all of you know that I give away some really great tools on my website. So if you want any of these, again, you're going to get a copy of this presentation. Just send me an email. It would be my pleasure to personally supply these to you. So take advantage of that. They're free. Really great tools. And as well, I give away a copy of my guidebook. It's on my website. The 7 Secrets to Building a Financially Engaged Leadership Team in Your Hotel. It's 8,000 words. It's basically the Bible for what I teach in my workshops. So it'll help reinforce what we're doing on the webinar sessions. So I really encourage you to do that. And when you go to my website, it'll ask you for your email address. That's how you get the guidebook. But don't worry, I do not spam you. All I will do is send you my weekly blog. I never sell the list to anybody or do anything else with it. So I encourage you to take advantage of that as well. And I have a video series that I've developed along with the Alberta Hotel Association, your neighbors to the west. And I just want to play one of the highlight videos for all of you right now, because I know that most of you are at home and you're looking for things to do. So the video series is not free, but it's really reasonably priced. And I'll show you one of the videos right now.
I don't think we can hear the sound on the video.
Oh, no. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to move on then. I apologize for that. We'll have to figure out how we do that. So just a couple of things here before we go to the questions. I mentioned my blog. I have over 150 original blogs that are there for you to read. So there's all kinds of stuff to read. If you're at home, read a couple of these every day. They're very insightful. It's really going to help you put all of this together. Find me, follow me on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube station where I have a lot of videos. Some of the videos from my series are there as well. The self-study video course that we talked about. You can request the free tools that I offered earlier. Download my guidebook, webinars, workshops, and I do a one-on-one mentoring program as well. So with that, I want to say thanks, and I want to go back to the questions. So Carrie, we've got a few minutes left. What did we What questions did we receive?
We have a few. So the first one is, with the recent COVID outbreak, do companies now have to plan or budget for the what if scenario in today's world? And I guess, how do you begin to do that?
Yeah, so that's an impossible task in one sense, but what companies, I think the smart companies are doing are they're probably building 4 or 5 different versions of budgets, beginning with summer recovery, fall getting better, getting a lot of those groups back that we had this summer that canceled. So I think the best scenario is to plan for various different levels of recovery. We have to be optimistic. At the same time, we need to be realistic. So it's like pulling out cards out of your hand. Okay, which hand do we think we're going to be playing right now based on the current situation? 60 days, 90 days, end of the year kind of thing. So that would be the way I would approach it. It's a good question.
Okay. The next question is, what would you recommend for software to manage financials in hospitality?
I get asked that question a lot, and I actually don't recommend anybody's software because that wouldn't be, smart for me to do. That's not really what I do. I help people with their training and their understanding, and I kind of leave it up to them to pick what product is going to be best for them and how it's priced and how it's delivered. But, the thing that I would say is that, what you want to be able to do is create your own financial statements within the system and be able to manipulate those so that you can take advantage of a lot of the features that I write about in my blogs, so that you can put in productivity, you can put in flow through, you can put in departmental profits. So there are lots of great systems out there. Again, I don't recommend anybody's products because I don't work for them, so it doesn't really make any sense. Maybe if they wanted to sponsor me, then I would, but only if they're really good. But there's some, if you Google, top 10 hotel financial systems, you'll get all the information you need.
Okay. And then one of the questions is about sharing budgets with levels of staff. At which level should you share this? Upper, mid, entry-level staff? Kind of, what is your recommendation around that?
Yeah, so I think the point of contact is if people in my hotel are scheduling employees or ordering supplies, then they're deemed to be having financially responsible positions. And that's the level that I want to make sure I put my training and my faith in, and share budgets and share financial statements with the people who are financially responsible for a part of our operation. Now, if we have people, call them people below them, that are up and coming, absolutely, the more the merrier. But we can't realistically share the information with everybody in the hotel because they have other jobs to do.
Okay. How can a sales team best utilize the information from the hotel financials? Aside from the obvious, how can sales impact or contribute?
Well, I think the key with sales is understanding the segmentation for the hotel. Who are our customers? And those customers come at different times of the year. They spend different amounts of money. They have different characteristics, groups versus leisure customers versus corporate customers versus business travelers, and really understanding what we're doing to go after each piece of that business and make sure it represents what's in our budget and our forecast. There should be a direct correlation between our activities and our market segmentation.
Okay. And one last question, just about beginning to fathom what 2020 is going to look like. I know you kind of answered this a little bit, but in case you have anything else you would like to add, what do you feel is the most important financial step to keep pushing through this whole situation?
Well, I think you have to have a positive attitude. That's really not a financial skill, but I've been through a lot of downturns in our business, and I always thought the sky was falling. This time, I think the sky has fallen. But the good news is that we're, other than a few, I don't know how to say this, but we're all still here. And I know there are people that aren't, but for the most part, we're all still here. So we've got to continue on. We've got to have that indelible human spirit to continue. And that's what I believe in. And that's what I believe will carry the day. And people will want to travel again. People will want to welcome them in their hotel. People will want to have meetings. It's probably going to take longer than it's taken on any other crisis that we've had. But I know it's going to happen. We just have to have a positive attitude and be ready when it does, and welcome it, and take from this something that we can say, okay, I learned an important lesson here. Whatever it is for you personally or for your business, how you work with your people, what is that one thing that you're going to say, I'm never going to do that again? I know I have my answer to that, but that's a personal thing. So I would ask everybody to think about that. Because you know what it's like when we're busy and we don't have time for this, we don't have time for that. Well, that's a lot of BS, because we have time for whatever we decide we have time for. And organizing our priorities so that we have a smoother running group of people is worth it. So that's kind of a clue as to what I think people need to do, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, and that's our last question. So.
Oh, excellent. Well, that's pretty convenient because it's like 2 minutes past 2 o'clock. Excellent. Well, we're back next week, same time, same station, for chapter 2. And I will send everybody, based on the last email that you sent out, I'll reply to all and include the homework on there, and look forward to next week. And in the meantime, if anybody has any questions, you can email me. And if you want any of those resources, just ask for them.
Yes, thank you very much, David, for joining us today. And like you said, we'd like to invite you back for the next 4 webinars. Use the same link that you had before. If you're having any trouble, please email me or call me. And I know there were some people that were having trouble with the chat function. And I had a couple of people actually just emailing me their responses to their questions. So you can do that as well if for some reason it doesn't work for you. Thank you, David. Thank you all for taking the time to spend with us today, and have a fantastic day.
Thank you, Carrie, for being an awesome host and organizing all of this for all of us. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. I have also recorded this as well, so we will be able to share it with you once we kind of work out the kinks with that, but so you'll have access to it. Okay, bye for now.
Okay. I don't know how to turn this thing off.
Figure out how to stop recording.
I guess I just hang up.
Yes, you can just leave the conversation. Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to debrief tomorrow or something?
Sure. Just let me try to figure out how to stop this recording. Oh, there we go.
Okay.